Seth Williams from Reference Real Estate and Brendan Ward, co-host.
Yeah, I think that's what
Am I the co-host?
I don't know. I think I think usually when you're
co-hosting.
Yeah.
And
you get both of us.
And Brendan's at Cherry Tree Title.
Sure, yeah.
And Cherry Tree Legal.
Correct. I do a little of everything.
You do legal and title.
I do legal and title.
And we have Lacey here as well.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Lacey. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Lacey is in the mortgage biz, as well as Anthony LaPolla.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
What's up, guys?
Wait, how come Lacey doesn't have a last name, Seth? Only Anthony?
Well, because actually,
Why
ahead.
don't we tell her? Because there's
Why don't you
another
why don't you go ahead and say it? What's her last name?
Faria.
Good job.
We practiced before you got here.
We had a 2-minute debate
Yeah.
on how to pronounce it earlier.
It's really pronounced Faria if you really want to get technical.
So you're fucking
Oh, I'm so fucking
Curveball.
Faria's perfect.
All right.
All right, cool.
But is Faria better?
If you want to roll that
Do I have to
R a
roll it
little
better?
bit,
Okay.
no, if you want to make it fancy, say Faria.
Okay.
I can't do that. So, listen, we just wanted to shoot shit for the next hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, however. I'm just going
However long this lasts.
60 minutes or so, and just talk a little bit about.
We will have a break for our
Yes.
sponsors.
We just want to shoot the shit a little bit about the biz, kind of what you guys are seeing in the market right now. Obviously, I think little turbulence, for lack of a better word, right now.
A little bit.
In the market. I know a lot of my peers are really worried about what's happening. The limited offers being written kind of in the market right now as we kind of hit this fall, winter market in 2022. So, I mean, I don't really have an agenda other than I just wanted to shoot the shit and hear from you guys specifically on what you guys are thinking, what's happening in the market, what's happening with rates, what's happening with the Fed, what's happening with inflation. Like, there's nothing off topic. Did I get everything?
Yeah, and I think the only other thing is we might take a couple minutes to hear about how you guys ended up in the business.
Oh,
I think that's kind of interesting as well. Like, I think that you guys are both pros at what you do, and it's always interesting to me to hear like how people ended up here. So we may spend a couple minutes on that.
Yeah, let's start with that. That's a better idea.
Yeah, I thought we could edit it any way we want.
Yes.
All right.
The more you say things that we have to edit, by the way, we have to edit those things too. You know that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Lacey, why don't you just kick us off a little bit about you and how you ended up in the biz? I think that's a great call.
Cool. I am Lacey Faria with Cross Country Mortgage. I've been in mortgages for 4 years now. I've been in real estate for a very long time, though. So before mortgages, I was a real estate paralegal. I know.
Did you know that?
I did know that.
For like 10
I did
years.
my homework, Seth, on our guests.
Just find me on LinkedIn.
Did you know she was also in the real estate biz?
I did.
I was a real estate agent, too.
I did know that.
Yeah.
And her brother's a graphic designer, I think, too.
He owns a marketing company.
Yes.
Good job.
He's coming next week, actually.
He's our next guest.
I love it. So, yeah. So once you're in real estate, you really can't get out. And I've done pretty much all areas.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about so was paralegal first?
Paralegal was first. I was about a little over 10 years ago. I started as a secretary, which didn't last very long. I moved right up to paralegal status. This was after the crash.
That means you were probably a really, really good
Very good.
I was.
Yeah.
I was. So I learned it very quickly.
Or just better than the other paralegals.
Maybe.
I became a really good paralegal.
Can you read a title?
I can read a title.
Oh, then you're golden.
I know.
Right?
I can do all parts. So.
And then from paralegal, you ended up in just being a real estate agent?
I got my real estate license about a year and a half after I became a paralegal because I wanted to stop buying for myself. And I figured I was already in it, so might as well get my license.
So what was the first thing you bought?
My first house in Saugus.
Nice.
Yep. With
Single?
my license, single fam. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
You still own it?
No, sold that one, bought another, sold that one, bought another.
I love it. And I think strangely, you also got in real estate to help your own purchases back in the day. No?
Yeah, in a way.
Kind of, sort of. That's how I ended up in the biz. To be honest with you, I don't know if you know that.
I did know that. Many a conversation
we're not
reminded me about that.
We're not talking about me right now, though.
We will. We'll get there.
Okay, cool.
So Lacey, then you were doing paralegal and real estate on the side, or did you jump full-time into real estate?
So I was doing it part-time. So that was really my second source of income.
Because those horrible lawyers don't pay paralegals enough.
I worked a lot of hours.
I'm sure you
Trust
did.
me, and you're correct. And that is the reason why I got into mortgages, actually. So I was really good at the number side. I knew a lot about mortgages from being on the legal side.
You could balance a CD like nobody's business.
I can. And I like the puzzle aspect of it versus showing houses. It just fit me better. So I went into mortgages full time.
When was that?
Gosh, that was 4 years ago.
Okay.
March of 2018.
Wow.
Yeah, March of 2018. Did mortgages full time for a few months, and then I got an offer to be a paralegal again. That I couldn't pass up. So
Yeah.
I did both at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Which
Insanity.
definitely didn't last long because I got very busy in the mortgage side and I had to leave the legal side. And then cold turkey, full-time mortgage loan officer ever since.
And no looking back.
No looking back. Nope.
Not even now?
Yeah, not even now.
Oh, good.
Luckily, I'm still busy.
Yeah. And Anthony, tell us about how you ended up in the mortgage business. Seth probably knows because he's been there for every step of your life. But
That's true.
For the rest of us that don't know as much as Seth.
Not a dissimilar trajectory. I worked for a real estate investment company, not right out of college, but 2-3 years out of college. Knew I wanted to be in real estate in some capacity. Hooked up with a real estate investment company, worked my way up from, grunt running to Worcester 5 days a week to kick people out of their apartments.
What's this
sounds
Worcester
nice.
you speak of?
Worcester.
Worcester. It's a place in Massachusetts?
Sure is.
Oh, okay.
Central Mass, if you're familiar.
I've heard of it.
So worked my way up, running around in the car hours a day, 5 days a week. Ended up getting my real estate license while I was there to hold the license for the company so we could continue to buy, acquire, rehab, rent, a whole bunch of units. Worked my way there through, then became the chief operating officer of the company. So again, handling everything from acquisition all the way to rental. We tried to sell the company. That was a little bit clunky. And at that point I was, it had run its course, so to speak. So I remember being at a friend's house who Seth and I both know, sitting at his kitchen table, kind of bitching about work as sometimes we do. And he goes, hey, I just got a phone call. I think you should talk to this guy. And he says, hey, I think you'd be really good at mortgages. Go get your license. If you pass the test, there's a seat here for you. And like 6 months later, I was writing mortgages.
Crazy.
So
And no looking back for you either.
no looking back, not
No
even
looking
now.
back. Not even now.
When was that? It was probably 2015, 16?
I was in August 15th, 2016 was my hire date. And I
That's
only
very
remember that
specific.
because, it's like 3 days before my birthday. So.
I thought you were going to say it was the Assumption of Mary and that you remembered that. So it was how you track it.
Is that the
Yes, it's one of the holy days.
Okay.
The Assumption of Mary.
All right.
August 15th.
This is apparently a religious podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
Apparently. These are the things you pick up in religious education, Seth.
Thanks for letting me know. So, a pretty cool story. I think both of you guys kind of just migrating into the biz or kind of organically, which is,
Yeah.
I've said the biz like 3,000 times already, so I'm going to stop saying that. And then I know that you guys probably both had a lot of like built-in sphere of influence clients immediately, you being in the couple different real estate related industry, and then obviously friends, networking.
Yep.
Mike with his development and whatnot, right? It's just probably an easy, natural progression into the business.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell, especially the new guys that come in that we've hired over the years, I had a very, what's the word to use?
Unorthodox?
A very unorthodox start in mortgages because I walked into the business with relationships already established.
Right.
New people coming in that don't have that. It sucks trying to build it up from the ground when you get nobody to, get business from, give business to. Fortunately, you and I were close. We had other friends that were building houses, doing whatever it was. And I was kind of able to step in and build from there. So pretty fast start, unconventional start, but, still kicking.
That's a really interesting point. Lacey, did you have a similar network in place, or how did you
actually.
sort of get off the ground?
I love telling this story because coming from the legal side, knowing a lot of real estate agents, I actually knew a lot of loan officers, which didn't help. But I really thought I was going to get a lot of business right off the bat, but I was new. And then I quickly realized, I'm like, shit, I'm not getting the business that I thought. I have to figure out how to do it on my own. I signed myself up for coaching, etc., just to try to build that. And it took a little bit, but after the first, I'd say 6-7 months, I took off. So
So
kind
when
of
you
the opposite.
when you got into the business, one of the first things you did was hire a coach.
Not one of the first things.
First few
So-
months, though, it sounds like.
Yes, I hired
Do you
a coach.
still work with a coach?
Not the same coach, but I still work with a coach, yeah.
And you're also still in coaching, right? So all of us have some version of professional coaching, which yeah, it's super
Or
important.
versions, depending on how many coaches one wants to have.
How many coaches do you have?
I'm at 2, looking at 3.
It's a lot of coaching.
Well,
I
I need
You're a
it.
busy guy.
I think
I need
I
it.
think I technically have two.
Yeah, I think you do too.
But yeah, it's similar. Like when I jumped in the business, one of the first things I did was like, someone's been holding me accountable my whole life in some resemblance and sales, and now I'm accountable to myself. And although I'm competent in the ability to do that, I still, craved more. I wanted to learn more from somebody who just knew more. Right?
But aren't coaches like therapists where you could
Yes.
theoretically lie to them and, get away with your own shit, right?
I suppose that would just be a colossal waste of money. If that's
I
what
was
you
just
do.
going to say, I'm like, I pay for it, and I want to make sure
Yeah.
I'm getting my money's worth.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I overstate my activity.
Listen,
to my
I think there's a
coach.
difference where, like, personally, I've always been very transparent with like my coaches through the years. Like, I don't need you to tell me to do the stuff that I'm supposed to do. I want the industry knowledge. I want to know how to work through tough situations in a shifting market. I need to know new technology before it comes out. But I don't need you to tell me to call my past clients or something like that. You know what I mean? So, I found that coaching for me has always been more productive if I specifically guide what we're coaching on. Because if not, I think, like, did you make your calls to, 10 calls last week?
Yeah, you don't need to be micromanaged.
Exactly.
Yeah, agreed.
So when I got into coaching, it was because I wasn't getting the support that I needed at the time, and I knew that I wanted to do this for as long as I could, and I knew I wasn't going to sustain it at the level of business I was at. So the natural progression was, well, let's see what else is out there. And to your point about it being like therapy, like for me, that's essentially what it is at this point. We hop on a Zoom call once a week, once every couple of weeks, and it's like, hey, how are things going? How are you feeling about what's going on? Where's your head at? What's your mindset? It's less tactical and it's more mindset at this point, just, fighting through the trenches.
Do you find the same thing, Lacey?
Yeah, so in my coaching group, there's other LOs from different parts of the country. I love hearing what's going on in their market and what's working for them and try to apply it to myself and see if I can change a little bit because every market's different. So it's nice to pick up those tips.
But we are, so I was joking somewhat about the number of coaches, but I do have 2. And one of them I meet with every week. And we more talk about sort of like our business and what we're doing and staying accountable. And then the other one is all estate planning lawyers and lawyers that do a lot of what I do. In addition to real estate, I do a lot of estate planning. So that one is sort of more like the program that you're in, and it's very encouraging, and I get like super jazzed up when I come back from it. But this morning I was talking to my coach, and I'm really struggling with like how to stay motivated in this environment, right? Like it is
Just
hard.
like the shifting market. Yeah.
So you guys who do you guys still work mostly remote?
I'm in office because I have a team there.
Yeah.
I like being near my assistant especially. So I like to go to the office. I get way more done at the office than I do at my house. But I'll switch it up in here and there.
Same. I like to be in the office, team, people around me. I also have a 3-month-old at home, so trying to work under those conditions is not always ideal. But yeah, I'm in the office 3-4 days a week.
Are you finding it hard to stay motivated?
For me, some days, but not really. I surround myself with camaraderie. So I have a lot of people in my office, and I think that's important. Just being around people and will help you stay motivated. But no, I'm still kicking.
Cool.
It has its ebbs and flows for sure. I think for me, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety out there.
Yeah, the fear is
so
real right now.
if I can keep that at bay for myself and help my borrowers, agents, whoever I'm close with in the business, keep a level head through the hard times, that keeps me motivated because I'm trying to help everybody else around me stay on top of things and, build for when it gets busy again.
That's, I think, been the toughest part, is keeping your referral partners motivated. Our real estate agents will call me for advice, and I feel like a therapist right now. So I feel like I don't even have time to not be motivated. So that's been a struggle.
I think that can keep you on your game, though, when you're constantly re-engaging
Sure.
the agent on the other side, right? Like, practice what you preach to a degree, right?
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that agents are kind of calling you and either complaining or venting or seeking your guidance on right now?
Asking if they should get a second job. That's the biggest thing.
what's the
my
answer?
advice on getting a second job? Well, I tell them, I'm like, can you pay your bills right now? I
Right.
said, this isn't going to last forever. We have to just get through. We'll all get through it together. Make sure you can pay your bills for sure. But if you're having a down day or if you're struggling, call somebody that will motivate you. Call me anytime. I tell everybody that. Call me anytime. We can motivate each other.
Yeah, so we had kind of like an office epiphany a couple weeks ago. The reality of it is we've been so busy and just so lucky the last couple of years in this market that it's actually created such poor habits in the business, right? So, like the other day, and we have a full team here at Reference Real Estate. So like some of the outbound prospecting and stuff, we have an inside salesperson who does, right? So, but that's no substitute for me prospecting for new business as an agent, right? And so, just recently as we've shifted our focus to more buyer prospecting and buyer cold calling and, working those leads, so to speak, that we have in the database. And we've shifted that way more towards sellers. And with sellers comes, past clients, sphere of influence, for sale by owner, expired, all this type of stuff. And so now our level of prospecting is going up, and the epiphany was like, man, imagine if we were doing this the entire time,
Right.
and how much more business we would have had. And it's disappointing and frustrating, but yet, at the end of the day, I'm sure all of us will be fine through this, but there's going to be some agents who aren't. They're going to drop out of the business because they have not reacted fast enough. They haven't had any of that prospecting in play, and quite frankly, probably didn't save any money.
Yeah,
either.
it's like during the refi boom, Anthony and I, as we're still successful, we're still busy because I feel like we both focused on purchases during the refi boom.
Yep.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't. So a lot of LOs just focused on the refis. I let a lot of refi business go because I just stayed purchase focused because I mean,
You gotta.
this was bound to happen. So
We knew it was coming.
yeah, we knew it
Maybe
was
not to
coming.
the extent that it
Right.
did, but we knew a shift was coming.
Yeah, no doubt.
So.
What's crazy, and I don't know what you guys think, I just never would have thought that rates would have ran so far up so fast.
Yeah.
So I remember a conversation you and I, or we've had this conversation endlessly over the last
Sorry.
8 months.
I think
or
he
whatever
wants you
it's
to
been.
speak closer to the mic.
I think so.
Subtle
Said that,
set.
I guess. Sorry.
I remember having a conversation with you, I don't know how many months ago now, but it was like, dude, what are you going to do when rates hit 7%? And I was like, dude, they're never going to hit
Yeah.
7%. You're out of your mind. It's not going to happen. Relax. Everything's going to be fine. Little adjustment and everything's going to work itself out. And, here we are basically looking at 8%,
Right.
in a lot of cases. Yeah, man, it was.
The refi boom on the other end's going to be good, though.
Oh, I'm ready.
For sure,
I'm
I'm
ready
ready.
for it.
Getting extra sleep right now.
Well, like similar to your point that you made a couple minutes ago, is I have this conversation with my team every single day, and it's let's use this downtime, quote unquote downtime, to perfect our process, because 6 months from now we're going to be
100%.
going, shit, we should have used that time to iron out the kinks or to bring on another staff member or to perfect our process, whatever it is. And if we wait, we're going to be behind the 8 ball, and it's going to be far too late.
And you'll never catch up.
You'll never
Right.
catch up.
Yeah. No,
So
I completely agree.
that's another piece of the staying motivated question is knowing that things are going to change. This isn't going to last forever, and being ready for it and using the time to the best of your abilities while it is slower, so that you're ready. You're ready to hit the ground running when that refi boom does come around.
So one of the things that Seth and I have talked about a couple times is like the market that we're in compared to the rest of the country, right? So like the fundamentals of Boston and the Boston Metro are pretty significant, right? So like we have these people that are, renting apartments for $4,000 and $5,000 a month that, were transferred here from Atlanta, or they were transferred here from Silicon Valley, and like they're in this temporary housing. So like those people are going to be buyers, and it's like, how do we target them, and what are we doing to find those folks so we can get them, because they're not going to care as long as the payment's in range with what they want, that their rate's 8.5.
Right.
Right. So like if your budget's $4,000 a month or $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month, you're not going to look at the interest rate, right? You're looking at the payment. So like, how do we get people to focus on the payment and not the rate, right? Easy. So easy.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
all right, tell us how it's easy.
So this is what I've been doing, and I've still been busy. So I've had a lot of closings every month, thankfully. I'm just educating on the refi already. So we're locking them into the purchase rate, fine. There are plenty of different programs that we can get into to help them with that rate, but I am going over the refi process with them. I'm going over what that entails. I'm pricing out different scenarios with them. I'll drop it down to a 6, a 5, just to give them payment scenarios so that they have something to look forward to, and that's bringing the business in and keeping them active.
Yeah, making sure they know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, to the same point that Lacey was making, it's, you know, years ago I told people that when there would be any objection to rate, it's, you know, call me 6 months after you close. You're not even going to remember what your rate is. You're going to remember what your payment is because you make it every month, but you're not going to look at your rate. You know, this is the best we can do at the moment. You know, it is what it is. It fits your budget. It works. But selling the refi now, I mean, not to be a shady salesman, but people are craving that information. They're craving the fact that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that things are going to get better. So if it's, you know, convincing someone that this is only temporary, you know, you got to stick with this payment for 6 to 12 months. After that, I promise you it's going to get better. It works. You know, people get it.
Mm-hmm.
So help me with this, because I hope I'm not lying to all of your clients when I tell them this at the closing table. I know. I hope I'm right. I've been saying this for quite some time. Is like, stay in touch with your loan officer. Like, they have a database that they know what your interest rate is, and they're going to call when it drops and it makes sense. So like every closing that I do, I'm like reiterating, like, make sure you call Anthony, make sure you call Lacey, because they're going to want to know that you want to refi. So is that like real?
That's real.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I have that database, and it's all listed out. The date they closed, the interest rate, they pay PMI. It's all listed out. I'm actually preparing that list for when the refis happen.
So how often will you touch base with them between closing and that hypothetical drop in rate?
So recently, because we're expecting rates to drop next year, I want to try to stay in contact with them more often. So
that's why I asked that question, right? Because, like, you know, it's past clients for us. Usually we kind of just let them chill 3, 4, 5 months after closing. Right. You know, we'll touch base on birthdays and that type of stuff. And and now we're trying to keep them apprised more of their equity, right? Because there's no doubt there's a dip that's already occurred in a lot of different zip codes. But I feel like, you know, you'd want to spool that up. And I think whether it's an agent or a loan officer or a state attorney, it doesn't matter. Like, we all, I think, need to be communicating with our past clients probably more right now. Yep. That even feels natural. So just talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, every 6 months at minimum, you know, twice a year, 6 months after closing, a year after closing. You know, we all use different technology, different services that put us in front of people on a more frequent basis. I think as we wind down the year and get into next year, expecting rates to drop, that personal reach out, that personal connection will probably amplify quarterly. Yeah. You know, everyone's situation's different, but being in touch with them, knowing where they're at, understanding what their needs are, and then, you know, that you can parlay that into how much they really need you. You know, and I'm sure Lacey does the same thing. We make it a point to our borrowers to know that we're always there to answer questions. Even if I talked to you yesterday and answered every question you had yesterday, you think of something tomorrow night, call me. Yeah, you know, we're gonna be here to give you whatever.
Is that schedule
info.
similar for what you're doing, or is it more, or is it less?
It's probably around the same normally. Right now, I feel like past clients are a great referral source, so I'm kind of touching base with them more often. And I think it's, like I said, it's good to stay in contact with them, getting them ready for the refi. So I'm trying to reach out to them even monthly, whether it's a text, like, how you doing, or an email or a call. I kind of switch it up. Sure. But I think monthly is important right now. Normally, it would be like every 6 months.
Yeah, makes sense. I think too, like, some of the stuff that I've seen recently is, you know, how I completely fucking lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I had a question.
Oh, good. Let's do that.
Brought up.
Yeah, let's talk about that then.
So one of the things I heard you say is PMI, right? So a lot of people, because of the massive increase in values, may not necessarily want to refi because their rate is low. Does it ever make sense, because of the gain in equity, and the amount that they were paying in PMI to do a refi anyway, even though the rates are higher?
Depends.
Okay.
Yeah, not really right this second because the rates are so high. So it's not really making much sense. I would think it's better for the people that want to take cash out. I still have been doing cash out refinances, especially for people buying investment properties. We're using the equity from their primary. But when they were a little bit lower, for sure, it made sense to get rid of the PMI or go from an FHA loan to a conventional loan. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Because you can't shake PMI without refi or until you've paid down your original
78%
Yeah.
is when it'll fall off automatically.
Yeah.
Given the appreciation over the last couple of years, and I've told this to people since, the end of 19, it's, look, give it 6-12 months. I mean, it's going to take you organically 5 years to get to that 78% in terms of loan to value. With the market appreciation, you're there in 6 months.
And will they
12
just
months.
order like an appraisal, but without a refi, or will
Well, you can, if the servicer allows it, they can request it. A lot of the servicers have gotten tighter on what they'll allow for and what needs to be in place to get rid of mortgage insurance.
Because they don't want them in that 3.5% interest loan anymore either, right?
Well, they don't want to give up the MI.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
So I had a borrower who bought in 2020. Clearly, with appreciation, they're at 80% or less. They've been calling me every single month for a refi, and I'm like, look, do you want to trade your 3.625 rate for a 7.5? If you do,
hell no,
I'll write it.
Yeah. No.
But I mean, the financial impact, you're not saving yourself any money by getting rid of the mortgage insurance. Here's what I recommend. Call your servicer, see what they allow. Because it's been less than 2 years, they wanted to be able to verify that substantial work has been done to the property to allow the removal of mortgage insurance. Now they're coming up on 2 years in, another 3 months. So after that, they're in the clear. But until then, they're kind of handcuffed.
Makes sense.
Interesting.
It's a science.
I was
math.
never good at science. That's why I'm a lawyer. I would have been a doctor. Science was, maybe an architect, but not a.
I feel like you would have been a good architect.
I feel like I could still be a good architect.
Well,
You're looking for a career change?
Maybe next year.
Yeah.
At this,
Just like a side hustle, right?
right,
Like an architect.
Next side hustle.
Yeah.
I like it.
I remembered my thought.
Oh,
so I'm gonna
can't wait to hear
I'm
it.
going to share it now. So for at least us, I think what we've been struggling with is trying to service these clients that came into our system, our database or our sphere, or whatever you want to call it, back in the spring. Right. So, and Anthony, we have a couple of mutual clients where, they were pre-approved for a killer amount, and we were shopping in the spring at, 3.5%, 4% even. And they're still super well qualified. Make no mistake. You know who I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly.
And like the reality is, we haven't written an offer. We've cooled our search a little bit, and now it's, it feels like we're beating a dead horse trying to get them to look at property because their affordability has been curbed by, probably $300,000. Give or take.
Yeah. I mean, in some cases,
they could afford it. I
Right.
guess
That's
their
the
payment has
difference.
become so uncomfortable
Yeah.
versus what they could afford. And just because all that happens, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden I'm okay with a much shittier house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for us, it's been trying to re-engage those people, which quite frankly, and I know I've said this to Anthony, and I'll say it to you right now, like, you're not probably buying the house you live in today at the price it costs today at 7.5, 7. Like
I bought a house in May.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that house today if
Yeah.
the rate's at 7.5%.
And oh, by the way, Peabody didn't really lose a ton of value, and if it did, it's really minor right now. So I think the reality is all of us, I feel like it's two-faced. I don't want to be telling my clients, it's still a good time to buy, still a good time to buy, which, let's agree, real estate's on sale now, and sure, the rates are temporary, but it doesn't change the fact that the payment is really, really huge.
And that's the really hard part right now is like one of the things that I say endlessly is just trying to highlight the fact that there's so much opportunity in this market for buyers despite where rates are.
Yeah.
I mean, how much, you probably have statistics on it, how much has buyer demand dropped off? 50%,
Oh, dude.
60%?
Well, I think if you recall, we did an exercise when one of the first of a billion Fed raises happened. And we went through just the loans closed this year.
Yep.
This was like an epiphany for me. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but like it was like 100 clients, let's say. And we just went through real quick who could have still bought the house they bought at today's rate. Yep. And the reality it was north of 50 or 60% that just based off their debt to income couldn't physically would have not been approved. I know we were just talking a little bit about appreciation in the market and kind of what's happening. And so you get the Schiller index. What is it? Who is it?
Yeah, Case Schiller index. Generally, the point to make is that month over month, nationwide, prices are down over 1%.
Wow, that was a loud bus.
That was a loud bus.
I gave it time to go by. Yeah.
I wonder where they're heading.
The greater point that I wanted to make, more so related to us locally in New England.
You got to speak into the mic, though.
Month over month,
yeah,
prices are still up, but essentially flat at less than 0.5%.
And is that year to date or just for the last month?
Right? That is the last month.
So
that is
September
compared to October.
Yeah.
Year over year, so this October compared to last October is still up 12.2%.
So what's interesting is if you look at the local zip codes, I'm finding that a lot of them are starting to dip drastically negative.
Well, I think it's also important to define what it means when prices come down. Because
what does it mean?
A price correction on a listing does not mean that prices are coming down.
What does that mean?
By if the same house is sold for a lower price than it did previously. So if someone buys a house in 2020 for $600,000, they list it today for $650,000, they price drop it to $585,000. That's a price drop because now it will theoretically, let's say it goes under agreement at $585,000. It is selling for less than it did previously. But if you take that same house bought at $600,000 2 years ago and you list it at $700,000, and you drop that to $675,000, that's not a price reduction.
Yeah,
it's still positive appreciation, positive growth
as it relates to this chart. Is your
correct?
Point.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I think the other thing too is a lot of the data is lagging data, right?
Yeah.
Right. So when you look in the MLS and you see properties are, still up year over year, the reality of it is that doesn't account for the listing that I have in Danvers that's been price dropped 15% that's still active on the market.
Yep.
Right. Because once that closes, which at this point is December or potentially January, dude, that's going to be 23% down.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously that's just one example. Maybe I overpriced the house. I don't know. I guess we'll come back to that later. But it's very interesting with the data because I'm being very cautious of where I'm listing homes that I'm just quite frankly putting them down 10 or 15% where they would have been potentially in the spring. And those aren't closed yet. Right. So once those close, 6 months from now, what does that summer market look like? And I think, sure, we'll probably get back to flat appreciation pretty swiftly.
Yep.
But it's all relative. Like, I have no clue personally and professionally at this point when this will stabilize. I don't know if you guys have an actual hot take. We've talked a lot about it.
Yep.
I mean,
I have opinions. I don't know if they're hot takes.
Well, I personally, dude, my opinions, I said in January, there's no way rates hit 5, and then once I think my coach at some point in March was like, dude, like, what are you preparing your business for 9% interest rates? And like, I laughed. And then I
called me and said,
dude,
what am I going to do? Are rates really going to hit 9%?
And, I think as they started to spool up in the spring, I got a little bit more nervous, got a little bit more practical, got clear on expenses, broke our lease, bought a building instead, just cleaning it up, right, to prepare for the storm a little bit. But I would have thought that things would have been a little bit more normalized already.
There was a window in August, probably a 2-week window, where rates came back down to 5%. And I had 2 or 3 borrowers I had one guy in particular that he was under agreement in November of last year. We had his rate locked at like 3.875. He backs out of that one. He looks all summer for a house. He goes under agreement, not all summer, goes under agreement in, let's say, March. The whole time I'm like, dude, I don't know what we're going to do about your rate. Like, it ain't going to be 3.875, but I'll do my best. Literally locked him like a week before closing because I was like, you need to do this right now, or you're not buying this house because guess what? You don't qualify with where rates are. Like, crazy. I have to pull this out of my ass and find a way to get you closed. And the market just like self-corrected for a hot minute and we got it done. And when I was looking at, past transactions this week, he's at like 5 1/8.
Yeah.
And a week later, rates hit 6%.
Yeah.
It was just wild.
Well, I think rates walked back for the give or take 3 to 6 weeks, whatever it was. I can't recall. I remember vividly because I was freaking out because I had 14 listings on the market and it was like crickets, man. It was slow out there. Like we were hosting open houses at a great price point, and just quite frankly, there were no buyers. So we applied a handful of tactics, some increasing buyer agent compensation, right, like REO days, in effort. Not that I was there, but like in effort to try and really increase demand, and that worked. And then we hit this rate slide for a little, and all the inventory. It was like the dam broke. You know what I mean? Everything moved, which was great.
Yeah. I was going to make a point, but
You forgot it.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess when do you think we'll see that rate slide again?
Gosh, my opinions keep changing, and I'm just
all
trying
of
to,
ours do. That's
I
what's
know.
messed up.
So
like,
all I can do is
daily.
just continue to follow like the economic professionals every single day to try to figure it out. First, I heard first quarter of 2023. Now second quarter of 2023. Now third quarter. Yeah. So I personally think third quarter of 2023. Maybe a little bit of a dip before then, but
yeah.
that's my prediction.
When you say a little bit of a dip, so right now we're probably, for the average borrower, in the mid to high 7s, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for the subprime, that's not the right word, but you know, the shittier borrower.
Well,
Yeah.
here's actually the weird thing about pricing. Not to go off on a tangent, but rates themselves are actually staying fairly consistent. It's the points that you have
Yes.
to pay for that
Yeah.
rate that are moving.
Which just, you know,
Can we explain
Yes.
that to a novice?
I was just going
right?
to say, like, I understand points. I literally don't freaking understand why anyone has to pay to get a rate. So just break that
I have
down.
a really good explanation, but it's going to take me like a few minutes.
All right. Well, can you speed it up?
Yeah,
So-
Lacey,
Speak
do you have
fast.
a,
Speak
do you have a,
fast.
do you have a
do you,
fast one?
do you wanna take it first and I'll fill in, or do you have?
I just don't get it. Like,
now I'm intrigued.
the only thing I can tell you is, like, I remember when all the secondary home stuff started going,
Yep.
and like one of our agents was buying in Florida, and he ran into this huge problem where he literally had to pay multiple points just to get a rate, and I was just like dumbfounded.
So that's a whole different
Yeah.
situation. So the second home investment property, that's good. That's different. So
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily apply in this case. The reasons that people are having to pay points right now, even at elevated rates, is going to get real technical, but it's based on the secondary market. So every
And if you don't know what that means, it just means that
Oh, I know what it is.
More-
Those are the people that are in the
it's
basement.
for the listeners, man,
oh,
for the people.
sorry. I thought we were talking about me.
So who
So
was in
every
your
mortgage
basement?
we write,
The people in the basement that check to make sure that on all the documents that you put the notary date expiration and the
I don't think that's it.
and the
where is
Patriot
this
Act.
basement?
Yeah.
It's in Madison, Wisconsin. And then 30 days after closing, we get emails day after day from somebody
From the
that says
basement.
the documents are wrong and that we have to go to the borrower and get them
man.
updated.
So mortgages
But those are for
traded.
the secondary market.
So mortgages are traded. Every mortgage we write is essentially packaged up with others that are like it and sold into the secondary market as an investment security. The reason borrowers today are having to pay rates even at elevated points at elevated interest rates is because, to put it simply, there is no demand for a mortgage product, a mortgage-backed security at a 7+% rate on the secondary market.
So in other words, there's no buyer.
There's
for the
no
loan
buyer
product
for
that you're
that, for
creating.
that investment security. So by default,
Yeah.
for that product, that mortgage product.
Why?
So why does me paying
Because
more
the market knows rates are coming down.
And the investors don't want to get stuck with something that's going to get refied out.
Well, because
they-
they're going to lose money in the short term.
Well, because
right?
an investor has to pay a premium to a mortgage lender to acquire that loan. So if they're going to pay a lender, let's say 103%, a 3% premium on that loan that's closed, that's an expense for them. If that borrower makes 6 payments, 8 payments, 12 payments, they never recoup that upfront premium that they paid out to acquire that loan. So now what they're doing is they're forcing it on the borrower. Hey, borrower, you want to go buy a house right now? Awesome. We want you to buy a house, but we want you to pay 2 points because we're not willing to pay 2 points to acquire your loan.
Yeah,
There's
so
no profit in it for us.
I thought that was a great explanation. So
That's perfect. And that wasn't
I get it.
long.
No, it wasn't long.
You said that quick.
I cut it real short.
So
Impressive.
no, I think that was a great explanation. And I think it makes a ton of sense. I think it should make you feel good about the rate market, right?
Exactly.
I also had another thing I was going to say that I can't remember now.
Well, I have a question about that. So one of the things I heard a loan officer say recently was that borrowers in the secondary market, buyers are also worried about too many people paying points to buy down rates and then impacting the refi market on the backside of it, right? So if the buyer just paid 10 grand in points to buy down their loan, they may not want to do a refi because they're going to lose that 10 grand.
Oh yeah.
So the buyer themselves.
buyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when my clients come to me and we're talking about buying it down, some people are asking to buy it down even further, and I'm advising, no, this doesn't make any sense because you're going to refinance way quicker than you're going to recoup these costs. So the people that actually know that ahead of time, that's a great point. But it's our job to educate them.
Right. And I have a lot of conversations with the real estate agents that I work with, and it's, let's, in this market, a little bit less buyer demand, sellers are starting to feel some pressure. Let's get a seller credit. Let's ask for 10 grand back so that the seller can buy your rate down, so that even if you refi in 6 months, you didn't outlay that cash. You're not losing anything.
And that
the
helps.
Seller did, but
the loan cost qualification too, right? Like if there's,
it can, yeah.
But ultimately, it's a way for the seller to still get the cash that they want for the home.
Correct.
And bridge the gap of affordability.
Well, it's like this, right? To use your point about price dropping that house, let's say it was 4 times, whatever it was. Instead of a price drop, you go to your seller and you go, look, I got a buyer that's willing to buy it. All they're asking of you is 10, 15 grand to buy down their rate so that it's more comfortable for them. So, hey, Mr. Seller, we can drop your price 20 grand, go back to market, do another open house, or you take a $15,000 hit on your proceeds and we get this thing locked up today.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you. And I think the hardest thing as an agent who predominantly lists in the market right now is how do you convey that with clarity to the end user being the buyer when the buyer is not your buyer.
Yep.
Right. Like I might not ever even get the opportunity to convey to a potential buyer that my seller would be good with that. What am I going to do? Write it in the MLS description that none of us read?
We've had this conversation.
You know what I mean? It's so hard to communicate to.
Well, you're usually really shy with co-brokes, so I can't imagine you wouldn't want to explain that to a buyer's agent who's trying to put an offer in on one of your listings.
Well, so that's the thing. I'm talking about, I think that was an insult, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about how do you even, I can't even talk right now. It's not... If you have, I'm having a stroke. If you have a buyer with an agent, it's not an issue. It's trying to get to that point that I'm finding is difficult, right? So let's continue to pull the thread of the Danvers listing. The reality is, with 10 or 20 grand, if I have that available, and let's say I do, how do I convey to the general public properly that there's so many different loan programs available to give you $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in buying power on the property? Because the reality is we can do that on any and all of our properties that we have listed. There's just no good way to do it. And, we have to have these people at the open house to have these conversations with. And quite frankly, at the open house, I'm representing the seller, and it's a weird fiduciary spot to be in to start conveying that, hey, my seller will give you cash. It just sounds so desperate. So there's no good way to do it. And ultimately, it's
I think Lacey has an idea.
It's just going to come down to like out of the box marketing that you either display, but no one's going to read it. It's just a tough spot. Go ahead.
What I've been doing, and I don't do a ton of open houses just because I'm very busy with children on the weekend, but it's so important to have a loan officer at your open house and let them do that.
Yeah.
So I always tell an agent.
We could always sponsor babysitters for loan officers to go to open houses.
I like that idea. I like that idea.
We're creative at Cherry Tree.
So what I've been doing is even just leaving my flyers. I mean, there are programs like the buy down programs right now. So I've been telling the agents, talk to your seller. Are they willing to do this? And then we'll leave these flyers at the open house. And when people do come in, have the loan officer educate them, and then you don't even have to do it.
Great idea.
That's a good call.
Well, you were saying that, though, maybe for a, Class A loan officer like the ones that we have in front of us, maybe part of their discussions with the buyers as they're pre-qualing them is to coach them on strategies for abstracting credits from sellers.
And that's what we've had to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how we're keeping them active.
Yeah. And that's what I find is the hardest thing right now is like we as the professionals around the table, we know there's opportunity. We know that, we can speculate when rates are going to come down. We know things are going to get better. Conveying that to your buyers, and in a lot of cases, the agents that are working with them, is really difficult people watch the news. All the news is
Yeah.
going to talk about is how shitty things are and how high rates are and how much buying power you've lost. So the challenge for us is flipping the script on that and really proving to people that there's opportunity, there's ways to achieve what they're looking to do without breaking the bank. All it takes is a little bit more creativity than what maybe we're used to over the last couple of years.
Right.
But there's ways to do it.
It's just, yeah, it's so hard to even get that end user who is browsing online right now, like the Zillow buyer, so to
Yep.
speak, who might have quickly used their calculator to calculate a payment. And they're like, oh, I want to go see this. Click, and they're with an agent, right?
Yep.
I feel like even that, and I don't have the stats on this, of course, but like, I feel like even them running the numbers is stopping them from even the initial inquiry. And so it's so hard to reteach or retrain those folks. You know, it's one thing if you have the inbound ping,
Right.
and you have the opportunity to, but there's so many people that are just on the sidelines, not even attempting to play right now. Because I truly believe it is still a good time to buy as long as you get the payment that works for you.
Right.
Right.
And there's a trade-off between
Yeah.
today's prices at today's rates
True.
versus, prices a year from now that we could argue are still going to be 10% higher than they are. The rate might be 2% less, but now you're still paying more for the same house.
Right.
Instead of buying it today, getting the house, locking it up, and refining in 6 months when rates come down.
Yeah. So you had mentioned the buy down already, Lacey. So can you just quickly, and I'd love to hear from both of you guys, just quickly touch on like this 2-1 buy down concept that everyone keeps throwing around, that I'm sure
Yeah.
the people don't even know what that is.
This is a good one, and I've been using it a lot lately. My company offers a 1-1 buy down, a 2-1 buy down, and a 3-1 buy down. I'll just stick with the 2-1 for right now. So basically, the buy down needs to be paid by the seller or the lender. So the buyer doesn't even pay for it, which is enticing. So you lock them in at an interest rate, let's say 7%. That's the note rate. So the first year of their mortgage payments, you're going to drop 2 points. So they're going to go down to 5%. The second year after that, it's going to drop down by 1 point. So it's 6%. Then the third year on, they'll be locked at the note rate at 7%. But the beauty of this is you can still refinance. So you're going to be most likely refinanced before you even hit that 7%. So it's essentially lowering your payments for quite a while, and the buyer's not even paying for it.
And the cherry on top is if you refi before that 2 years is up, that seller money that was used to buy down the rate is sitting in escrow. That gets used to pay down the principal balance on the loan when you refi it. So essentially, your seller's paying for your refi.
That does
It's a
sound like a
win-win.
cherry on top.
When I initially heard about this, my immediate concern was like 2006, 7, 8 shit. Like, what number are they getting qualified on? And they're qualifying on the highest payment.
Correct.
It used to be at the lower rate, which is what caused problems.
Yeah, because if another person, correct, right? Because then you're setting all these people up to essentially fail 2 years from now,
Right.
and that would in fact cause huge problems if a lot of people were taking advantage of the program. But again, they're go ahead and they're qualifying on this highest payment. So if another person tries to tell me the market's going to crash because of the 2-1 buy down, I'm going to lose my mind. So
Yeah, that couldn't be further from the truth.
agreed.
I mean, realistically, how many have you seen?
2-1 buy downs?
Yeah.
We're doing one right
I
now.
have a
I
few
think
right now.
I have a couple of them right now.
Yeah. But I mean, not like overwhelming amounts that the market will crash in 2 years because of the 2-1 buy down.
No.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think the point is like it's not going to, because they're actually being qualified properly.
They're being
Correct.
qualified.
At the higher rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just another tool. It's another tool in the toolbox. It's another way to get creative for your buyer. They're only going to qualify for what they can qualify for, even at the higher rate, but you can make that payment more comfortable.
Sure.
Clearly it takes a willing seller and an understanding buyer to know how it's all going to work. But in the cases where it works, it's a great tool.
Isn't it funny how, like, I feel like years ago you had to really try and convince either another agent or, I mean, I guess you guys don't do this that often, but we found ourselves always trying to negotiate, like, why does this person need a credit?
Yep.
Do they have liquidity issues, et cetera? And now it's just like, it's like all of a sudden the consumer, being the client, gets it. Clearly the obstacle all along was the agent not willing to explain it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Well, I think when you have 20 offers on a house,
Yeah.
and you're trying to make sure you're taking the strongest offer, and all of a sudden someone might have the highest offer, but they're asking for 10 grand back. It's like, well, is this deal going to fall apart over 10 grand? Because if so, I'm just going to take the next offer in line.
Right.
When you've only got 1-2 offers, it becomes a greater part of the conversation.
And I know there's a couple other loan programs that kind of broke out lately. Mass Dreams program, right? So have you guys already started doing some of those loans?
I have.
Yeah. And so you just quickly catch us up on kind of what the take is on, the pros and cons, or, what you need to qualify. We don't need all the ins and outs, but just a high level
Take it
overview.
away. You've probably written more than I have.
So I think the cons are the way people are marketing it, and real estate agents don't know enough about it, and they're just marketing it as,
Free
you're
money.
getting free money for everybody. And
We call those Instagram realtors.
oh gosh, so that's been brutal. It's been tough because the guidelines are more strict
pretty
on
strict.
mass housing. Yeah, they are more strict. There are income guidelines you have to follow. Mass housing calculates income different than we normally do, so you have to be very careful there. And the biggest thing the problem people are running into is some loan officers are qualifying people based on that grant. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to send a pre-approval.
It's not a guarantee.
Because it's not a guarantee. You need to have an accepted offer to even apply for that grant. And it's not going to last forever.
And it's up to 50 grand.
Right.
And there's
Not
only like
50.
$30 million in the fund, right?
Yeah, it's a
for the
set fund, and
program.
when it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone.
Right.
So what I have to do is make sure that they qualify with a DPA, down payment assistance. And that's how I'm sending my pre-approvals. I will always have a backup plan for this Mass Dreams. But it's good if you can snag it, but there's way more to it than what is being advertised.
Yeah, and I haven't written one yet. Would you even know, as an agent writing or receiving an offer, is there any differentiator on the pre-approval, or, because if
No.
someone was doing a 5 or 10% down, I would never ask for proof of funds.
Right.
But it's very possible that we could get to commitment timeline and get, denied.
Well,
So
to Lacey's
one-
point, this is why you
Yeah.
can't include that grant. It's not a guarantee. So you
Right.
can't use it as like you only qualify for this house by getting the grant.
Yeah.
That's not a good pre-approval.
Right.
We have seen in our office some not great loan officers like the two of you that have done the program wrong. No, you are great, and these other
I know,
loan
I was thinking that too.
officers
I'm like,
are
wait a minute.
not as good as the two of you, where they were telling their clients that they could use the down payment assistance to qualify, and then we're at the commitment date and we have to kill these deals.
That's already happened.
We've had to, as Seth would say, take a couple out behind the woodshed.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the worst part was
Shoot
when Mass Dreams was announced, and every real estate agent know was, hey, everyone, free 50 grand if you qualify. You just have to live in these cities. And I think you were at the same thing with
yeah.
the cherry
Yeah.
tree, the event with Lisa was there.
Yep.
And she made a point at the event to say, you guys are wrong.
Yeah.
You're marketing this incorrectly. You're giving people false hope. That's not how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't make one of those videos, to be clear.
Good.
Don't.
I don't plan on it. I think this podcast will be sufficient where we actually explain the
Don't be an
program, so.
Instagram realtor.
Yeah. We don't like
Well,
that.
I like
Well,
Instagram.
Seth is all over
I love Instagram,
so
but I mean the kind that has like one meme on, do you want
I'm just-
$50,000?
I'm just trying to create good content for the people, Anthony.
Actually, your last set of videos were really good. I don't know if I told you that, but
Hey, thank
I
you. I
watched a
appreciate
couple that were like, they were spectacular.
I made him right in this room.
I know, on that board over there.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
I
right.
can tell.
Yeah.
So I just want to go back to one more thing about the Dreams program that you hit on, because when I hear income limits, I think, well, it's probably super low. They're actually really high.
They're very,
Very
high.
high.
Well, the Dreams is very high,
Yeah.
but you also have to qualify for the actual mass housing program and each program has a different income limit.
How
so-
am I supposed to know this shit?
You're not.
You're not.
Okay. So
but
just
you
get
guys are.
So we
Good
just
deal.
get them in touch with you guys.
Yes.
Is
That's
it
it.
cool? Yeah. Okay, cool.
As I have told you many times.
Stay in my lane.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
I've been trying. So
Let me handle the numbers.
Yeah.
Or
No.
Lacey, for that matter.
And so just a quick pivot. Something that I've seen starting to happen, and I'm wondering if you guys are seeing it as well. And I'm sure, Brendan, you can comment on this stuff too. So I've started to see like literally every single transaction over appraise. Every single one.
First of all, I can't read your handwriting.
They're
not
my,
even-
they're
not
my
even
private
close.
notes. Okay. So
His own language.
I've
I
started,
wrote appraisal
Yeah.
problems too.
well,
Yeah.
they're not problems anymore. It's like they're
Well, I think
Well, they might be a flashing sign of
make no mistake. Like my point of view
A
is
problem.
when you start seeing things over appraised, that's a clear telltale sign the market peaked months ago. Right.
remember, there's lag. There's lag
100%.
built into the data, the statistics, the market. So that's
100%.
what we're seeing is the data is lagging. we said this, remember it was the beginning of 2020 and we were like, dude, I don't know what I'm going to do. Every appraisal's coming in low.
It's the same
How
thing.
are they not adjusting for the market?
Yeah.
3 months later, it was like, appraisal problems. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I get everything over appraising.
Right.
Yeah. So I just was curious if you guys were seeing the same thing start to happen on your end.
I feel like they've been coming in close to asking, just so appraisers save
Yeah.
their butts.
Yeah, fair.
It's the old appraisal trick.
Yeah.
Oh, your offer is
Send me the PNS.
353,985. The value of your house is 353,985.
Exactly.
Like, sure, don't round up. Don't go.
So good.
I'm not seeing anything.
Like, oh man, that agent's awesome. They hit it right on the head.
I'm seeing things like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 grand high. Nothing substantial.
Yeah. I've seen a few. I mean, they are coming in strong, which I don't know.
I have one that just appraised $24,000 high. You and I have
What's the
one,
purchase price?
535.
That's high.
535 came in at 554. So I was
That's
off
high.
20 grand high, 19 grand high.
That's 5-6%.
Yeah.
That's high.
You and I have one that just came in 3 grand
Yeah,
high. I
it's
mean,
not
drop
that
in the
bad.
bucket,
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
huge deal, but still they're coming in higher. But yeah, I mean, to Lacey's point, I find most of it is appraisers just trying to cover themselves. You know, they're
Right. They don't even know what they're going to do.
They don't.
They can't even catch up with the market. So
Yeah.
I guess that's good for us right now.
Yeah, I guess so.
What about vacation properties? So where do we see that market heading? Right. So like
in the toilet.
in the
Yeah.
toilet.
It's just by a quick verbal. Any of you guys have a vacation property?
Not yet, but I want one.
I want one, but I refuse to buy one.
Lacey?
I only have a rental property. I don't have a vacation property yet.
Yeah, so as the guy who jumped into that Airbnb market in the spring, a lot of people are calling for like Airbnb bust of the short-term rental market right now.
So what's funny is Fannie and Freddie are actually starting to recognize Airbnb style
Income.
Yeah, starting to.
Yeah.
Can't use it to qualify. It's it's still on thin ice.
But I could use it to offset my debt from the Airbnb property.
No doubt. And here's the thing, right? When you're going to file your tax returns and you're going to file rental income on your secondary property that's your vacation home, but you rented it for 8 months out of the year, as soon as it's on your taxes, it's real income.
Right. Yeah, I think that the market from an Airbnb standpoint is, I'm not really nervous about it because at the end of the day, I don't know about you guys, but like when I go on vacation now, I'm not staying in a hotel. I'm always looking the Airbnb route. So I think there's always a big demand there. But I do think that like hotels and stuff are trying to do a lot of work to combat with that market.
Yep.
And then secondly, like, I don't know, dude, Airbnb is just not hard. Like, it's just not hard.
But I think that's why we're seeing, and Lacey can speak to
As
this
a host,
too, why
I
we're
mean.
seeing rates and costs so high on second homes is, I think, a direct result of
To cool that
Airbnb.
market.
Correct.
Right? Because people are buying secondary homes at rates that at one point were very similar to primary housing.
Yeah.
They were staying there for a weekend, renting it out for 3 weeks out of the month, every single month, and then they were collecting rental income. Fannie and Freddie recognized this, and they go, well, shit, we're just going to make it cost the same as an investment property because that's how you're using it.
Right.
So I think that's kind of where it came from.
The thing is, though, the numbers still, so that happened to me, right? But at the end of the day, and in hindsight, my 5.75 rate looks pretty freaking awesome right,
Right?
now.
Sure does.
In the meantime, I was like, this sucks. Why is this so high?
I remember you calling me and you were like, dude,
I'm like,
why am I doing this? Am I really going to pay like 6%? And why do I have to pay that high?
yeah. And I don't think I had to even pay a point, which was nice. But
Well, ancient history at this point.
I know, right? Like this rate looks like a killer deal. I don't know. I think that I fucking completely forgot where I was going with this again.
Well, what's interesting is I wasn't even thinking about Airbnb. I was more on the like
True
long-term?
vacation home.
Long-term?
True second home.
Or second homes, just generally, like the markets where second homes are, saw this massive value increase with COVID.
Yeah.
And like, especially in the Northeast, people like leaving New York City, leaving Boston. So I ski and we're always looking like up north, and all of the properties in the locations where we look are like double what they were 2 years ago. So like as companies start bringing people back to the office and it's no longer convenient to work from Lincoln, New Hampshire or Stowe, Vermont when you work in Manhattan, like there's got to be some shift in that market.
I think
would
those
assume.
are the first prices to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everywhere, but the lakes regions, up at Long Lake in Maine, lakes in New Hampshire, people that family homes, right? You get a family, you want to go to the lake for the weekend, whatever it is. You're right. They saw massive appreciation really, really quickly. I think those are the first ones to come down. Like in like back to our definition of a declining market or declining prices, I think that's the real true first leg to go.
Well, that's the risk too, right? Like if all of a sudden everybody in our area of Florida decides that they want to get out of this secondary market because the market's turning, and they start dumping their properties and create this massive influx of inventory, now you're going to see prices decline.
And don't forget the demand has weakened because now it costs more to acquire those homes.
Or what about it? You bought them with a HELOC. Like how many people bought second houses with HELOCs? And now their HELOCs are prime plus
6.5%.
Yeah.
It's a different story than when it was 3%.
Agreed.
Do we think HELOCs are going to be an issue? I know we were doing tons of them. I don't know how many people like drew on them, but
I mean, I don't do HELOCs, so I wouldn't really know, but I did a lot of cash out refis to buy those second homes and investment properties.
It might be bad for business, but I'm actually recommending that a lot of people go get HELOCs. Same thing. Like I don't write them. I have connections that do. I have people that I can give them to just to make sure my borrowers are taken care of. But what's the trade-off? Cash out refi at 7.5%. You got to pay 3 points to get it. Or, hey, look, man, go get an equity line, pay 6% on it for a few months. I'll refi you out of it when rates come down. It's just the smarter financial move. Like I said, bad for business. I'm giving away a loan essentially. But if it's better for the consumer, I mean, you always got to put them first.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, I was more asking like the people that took their HELOCs out 3 years ago that drew on them were paying the lower rate. And now they're like, oh my God, I have 50 grand on this HELOC. Or 75 grand on this HELOC. It used to cost me $100 a month. Now it's 600.
Well, I have a lot of people coming to me and trying to refi and consolidate both with their first mortgage. But I'm like, no, you got to wait because
you got to wait.
It doesn't make any sense right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are the only refis we're writing is the cash outs for the people that are hurting financially because
they
of
don't
those.
care. They need the money.
Here's the
Right.
when the Fed raises rates, it's not apples to apples to mortgages, but it is affecting your HELOCs, your credit cards, your student loans, your variable sources of debt. I mean, I'm taking a dozen phone calls a week from people like, I just have to get out of 50 grand of debt. I don't care what the rate is. I just want this gone.
And what are we thinking? I know this isn't your specialty, but like I'm feeling like there's got to be some tide coming for commercial real estate, right? Like office. If you own 60 State Street or one of the big towers downtown and you have, all these remote workers.
But why do you think every company is forcing employees back to the office?
Right.
I don't think they all are.
I don't think all of them are. I think some of them are. And I think that's the reason is they're looking at their balance sheet. They're going, shit, we got this multi-million-dollar property on our books. Where are all of our people? If we're going to have it, we have to use it.
Yeah.
Well, I think I was reading something the other day that like downtown San Francisco, 80% of the leases in the office buildings in downtown San Francisco come up for renewal in like the next 3 years. So like as those leases come up for renewal, and we're getting way far aside, but like, does that like jobs have been safe?
Yeah.
In this?
I have no clue what will happen. And I think my own personal opinion would be, in the State Street example or the San Francisco example, we still have in both those cities huge housing shortages. Mm-hmm. And so the reality is if they really needed to, there's always an out to convert to residential housing. And you and I both know that whether it's downtown San Francisco or State Street, Financial District, Seaport, whatever, like people are going to rent those.
And the buildings are already there. So it's not hard to get them approved.
Yeah,
zoned for building, that's actually a genius solution in flipping.
And if you look at a lot, and I think that's just the natural progression instead of mass vacancy, right, is just this quick pivot to residential housing. And I think with that would come this more futuristic, apartment style property that has multiple Zoom rooms or whatever you want to call it, right? Like it has tech enabled rooms like we're in right now that are just part of your complex where you can
touch on how impressive this room is?
Is it the fake plan over there?
I mean, it's all of it. This is a pretty great setup.
The aesthetic is very nice.
Yeah. Well,
Great job.
Thanks. It's a podcast, so no one can see it.
What do you mean? We have 34 cameras around us.
It's just, well, gotta create that content.
Yeah.
So,
we'll share the content with you.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm not putting too much weight into the commercial side of things because I think it was hurting 2 years ago. And I do think that what's going to dictate that more is what the millennial employee wants to do, right? Like
They don't want to sit in traffic and
when
drive
they
to
literally are
work.
like, F you, I'm not coming back. And then those companies are hurting. I don't know how you solve that other than some sort of hybrid or increased salary or ridiculous stipends or quite frankly, a different workplace, right? Like that's a whole other problem. That's above my fucking pay grade, but anywho, so we've been going for a little bit more than an hour. I have a couple last questions for you guys and then we'll probably just try and wrap. Is that cool?
Cool.
So we talked a little bit about HELOCs. And I keep reading a ton of news about how different mortgage providers are adding different products right now, like specifically around home equity loans and home equity lines of credit. Obviously we're not looking to get into the inside of NRL mortgage or anything like that, but like, have you guys had any inside dialogue about how do you satisfy today's business need by this lending niche that or niche or whatever the fuck you say it, that's missing right now maybe in the business? With your company specifically, because obviously some companies do that.
Yeah. Specifically to HELOCs?
Yeah.
Okay, for instance, we have a HELOC product, but we don't use it quite
because
often.
it sucks.
Right. So I have somebody that I can send mine to, and I can do loans that they can't do. So we are a great
reciprocity.
Yeah, we have a great referral source for each other. That's how I'm handling it.
Got it. I just know like some companies are literally like, oh, we do HELOCs now, in effort to create that demand.
We can write them. What I tell people is I don't write standalone HELOCs. But
what does that mean?
Like just a HELOC as the individual single loan.
So you could write a loan, like a mortgage.
I could write a mortgage and I could piggyback it with a HELOC for like an 80-10-10, right?
So I own a property outright and I'm like, hey dude, I want to do a cash out refi type thing and get a HELOC.
More like I want to buy something. I want to put 10% down. I want to avoid mortgage insurance. What do you got for me? And it's okay. You put your 10% down. The HELOC contributes the second 10%. So effectively, you've put down 20% for that
it's like an interest-only
mortgage
second
product. And then we write a conventional loan at whatever the amount is.
Yeah,
it's not the most attractive.
Probably smart to do right now though, right? Because
popular
with values being potentially down.
Here's the problem: the rate on the primary mortgage takes a pretty substantial hit when you add the second lien.
So it's substantial,
like 0.75%. And when you're
so
already
you might be writing that primary at 9ish.
No, well, now you're just paying for it. Because remember, the rates are staying fairly consistent. The points is really where we're seeing the volatility. Yeah. So someone that would have to pay, say, a point to get into that loan is now paying closer to 2 just to offset the adjustment from the addition of that HELOC. It's not popular. Nobody does it.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
And it's pretty terrible.
Yeah. Well, in a big institution like cross country or NRL, like those HELOCs can be potentially ticking time bombs too, because they're like, you can just write checks, right? So like they might not be able to
pay
lend.
your mortgage with it.
Yeah. I mean, they might not be able to do bigger lending if they have a ton of HELOCs out there that are exposing them to people writing on them, which is why I think the smaller banks are more into that, because they can control the risk of how much they have out on the street in terms of like available funds.
Yep. Yeah. So HELOCs are your typical mortgage lender won't offer standalone HELOCs. Smaller banks, credit unions, things like that. Creative products, new products in and of itself. I don't know if you wanted to get into that or if you just wanted to keep it on HELOCs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's everything. There's non-QMs, there's bank statements, there's debt service coverage loans, there's P&L style loans, there's asset depletion, which you can do conventionally or you can do non-QM. There's pretty much every solution for every buyer that doesn't fit into your conventional box, so to speak. There is a solution for. You're going to pay for it in the rate.
Right.
Those are where you're going to see 8, 9, 10%. I worked on a cash out refi for a guy, $1.5 million house. He wanted to take $1 million out, pay off his loan, pay off his equity line to the point we were just making, pay off some debt. And I was like, hey man, I have a solution for you, but you're not going to like it. The rate's 10%. Oh my God. Your mortgage payment's now going to be $11,000 a month, but it gets you out of debt.
Right.
What do you want to do? He was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I was like, cool, man, then sell your house. Because I don't have another solution for you. So the point that I'm trying to make is you're going to pay for it, but there are solutions.
Yeah. And my question was more centered around the loan officer or the loan company trying to generate additional income and maybe a downtime.
Yeah, got it.
Right. So, but all really, really good info. So Is it cool if I just rifle off a handful of questions?
Can I ask one?
Yeah, go for it.
So you've both mentioned point buy downs quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Is that a point like a full percentage? So like when you buy a point, are you buying a full percent? Like, so I'm going from 5 to 4, or is there some delta in the reduction, right? It's not like dollar
Great
for dollar.
question.
Yeah.
How does that work?
For the buy down programs?
For any of them,
Just
like,
buying a point.
just buying points generally.
Yeah.
Like if I buy a point, am I getting like from 5 to 4?
Yeah, because people think you're
No.
lowering your
Okay,
interest rate.
Yeah, no.
I didn't do a great job of asking the question.
That was a great
but,
question, actually.
but I think it's something that I don't fully comprehend.
I don't think a lot of people comprehend it because I think the optics make you think you're saving quote unquote a point.
Terminology
Yeah.
Right.
would
Yeah.
suggest.
Because everybody asks, what's a point?
Yeah, finance
What's a
people.
discount point? And I just explain every rate comes with a cost. We just think of dollar signs. Forget that I said point.
Right.
So, I mean, we have all kinds of pricing, but mostly by the eighth. Let's just say that.
I remember that from high school. Eighths.
Thanks. Yeah, so all mortgages are in eighths, right?
I used to buy a lot of eighths.
No, generally,
you didn't buy
there's-
eighths?
my God.
Generally, there is some in between as well.
There used to be
depending on the
$20.
pricing.
6125.
I see where you're going.
Yeah. It was
But on the
$20.
average, they're basically by the eighth, which each come with a cost.
So one point is 1% of your loan size. So a $500,000 loan is a $5,000 for 1 point.
That's the cost.
It doesn't
Yes.
essentially buy it
And
down.
it brings you
Are
down
we,
an eighth.
are we teaching you right now?
brings you
Yeah.
down. Well, it's going to be different on market conditions, right? So normally, historically speaking, on average, let's say 1 point would get you ballpark at a quarter of a point. So your rate could go using today's rates from 7% to 6.75. Sometimes it's a little bit lower. Maybe you gain 3/8 of a point. In today's market, based on the economics of how these loans are being priced, you can get closer to a half, if not 5/8, if not 3/4 of a point in rate for that 1 point in payment.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Using
yeah.
using point
yeah.
with different definitions in
Yeah.
the same sentences is tough.
Well, and I think for most lay people, like that's probably a difficult concept to grasp. But I got it when you two just explained it. Thanks.
That means we're great.
yeah.
You guys are great.
I mean, I think I've said that numerous times today.
We need to
you
show
can-
visuals.
You
It's
can say it
easier
again.
You guys are great.
It's actually on the board behind you guys. Behind you.
Perfect.
It is.
You need because someone asked me that the other day. Like,
See, this goes back to visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except I'm looking this way.
someone was like, "Can you just? What the fuck is a point, man? I don't get it." So we were breaking it down.
I feel like there's some social media videos for you two right there is talking about what
What's
points
the
are.
point?
That's a great one. I'll have to come use this fancy board.
You
I
could.
like it.
We'll
I have the
use
white
it whenever you
version
like.
in my office. I like that one better.
I like that
though.
one too.
Racist.
I inherited it.
Sure.
Came with the office.
All right, so a couple different articles out there, all just kind of claiming, market's down 20-30% from a real estate value, right? So just want to get some predictions from you guys. What's like the
On the
max?
spot.
Yeah. So I'm just going to ask everybody. We're going to go around the horn. We'll start with Brendan.
Oh,
So Brendan, when do you think rates will peak? Like what month?
I don't know that I can say that that there's going to be a month. I would say it's tied to some economic activity as
Thanks.
opposed to a month, and I have no idea how to answer that. That's way
Okay,
outside my
we'll go
wheelhouse.
I'm going to go to Anthony.
Yeah.
Anthony, when do you think rates will peak?
If they haven't already,
Really?
in the next couple weeks.
In the next couple of weeks. Okay. Lacey?
I'm thinking end of November, December.
Yeah, I'm with Lacey on this one. I think,
Well, I guess that's what I mean. I mean, a couple of weeks puts us
It
at
is
the
right
end of
around the
November.
corner.
shit, you're right.
Christmas is, I guess, in 60 days. Somebody
Yeah.
posted
Oh,
that
God.
today.
Yeah, Christ. I was thinking somewhere like December 15th-ish, we'll start to see some walk back.
At 3 o'clock.
Yeah, 3:22.
Mark it on your calendar.
PM, yeah. I'll send you a calendar invite. As far as home values, we'll start with Brendan. What this is going to be obviously there's no right answer to this, but if you had to throw a percentage number on it, how much do you think home values will come down from now until the floor of this correction?
I don't think we're going to see home values come down. I think we're going to see a lowering, a gap in the appreciation. So we might see like less than 0.5% growth in home values, but I don't think we're going to see them come down.
Okay, Anthony.
individual properties, sure, we'll see decreases. I
Yeah.
think as a whole, I agree with Brendan, relatively flat.
Yeah.
We're just going to get back to a more sustainable, reasonable level of appreciation. You know, your 1 to 3% year over year versus the 20%.
Yeah, 4 to 5% is like really good.
Really good.
I would take that on almost any investment I have.
No doubt. And some of these markets, 22 to 33, 34, like Danvers, Peabody specifically, I think it was like 35, 36%.
Like 40% in 2 years.
Yeah, it's
insane.
just, I mean, that's so not
It's unsustainable.
Yeah, no doubt. So, and so that's the thing. Even I actually do think, I still haven't asked Lacey, but I
agree with both of you. I don't have a different opinion.
So I actually do think
does.
I think they're going to come down on paper. Now, I think it all depends on when you snap that chalk line, right? But I think this year will probably stay either slightly positive or slightly negative. And I think next year, because I think this is all going to go on for the better part of the next 9 to 10 months, that I think that the market ultimately will probably be down like 5 to 6% next year.
Home values.
Yeah.
I think in some parts of the country, absolutely.
Yeah.
A point that Brendan, I think, was making early on is that we in the Northeast
We're
and in
immune.
Boston, we're somewhat insulated from a lot of what happens in the rest of the country. Not just geographically, but economically. I mean, look at what we've got in Boston.
Yeah. Listen, I agree with you.
And
So-
to
my
extrapolate
prediction.
further, like I think that we'll even see a delta between towns and zip codes.
Oh,
like
for
I
sure.
think that like Weston, Wellesley, like they're not going to go down. Sort of some of the B
Yeah.
and C market, our A markets will not see any decrease. I think some of our like B, C, D markets might see drops.
I think I'm probably hypothesizing super hyper local, like the Peabodys as an example. I don't think you can go up 30, 40% in 2 years and not end up dipping back negative. The 3, 4, 5 year trend line is still going to be so dramatically positive.
So negative meaning year over year growth, not prices.
Prices next year will be lower than prices this year.
Okay. I'm referencing the definition
in Peabody.
of.
Do you want to make this a bet?
Do you want to make a bet?
Yeah, we can make it a bet.
All right, we'll make it a bet.
Oh, what kind of bet?
I just think that the leading indicator of what I'm seeing in the market, I think will result in some softness next year. And the second rates release, make no mistake, that's the dam break.
Right.
Well, I think until you solve the fact that there is a housing shortage.
Listen, I'm in your camp in theory. I really am. So if rates peak in December and they start to walk back when? January, February?
I think beginning of Q2.
So Q2, you said Q3 earlier,
April,
right?
May.
What number is that? Is that 6.5? Is it 6.25? Are we going back to the 5s?
I feel like they're going to stay steady for a little while, maybe high 6s, mid
Yeah.
6s. And who knows? I mean, we saw them dip like crazy and then increase
Yeah.
like crazy. I'm just hoping for like a steady.
We also
Yeah.
saw a global pandemic that nobody saw coming, right? So like
Exactly.
all of this is tied to economic and geopolitical things that like we couldn't predict. Right. Well, we have the English economy on the brink of collapse. We have
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, it's a big deal.
The
so
UK is about to just
the UK
fall off the globe.
Yeah,
Well, that's not going to be good.
No. So like there are, and when I was answering the question earlier about like it depends on external economic factors, like we don't know when it's going to peak, and it could drop and jump back up, or it could drop all the way down. Like that's kind of the fun of what we do, is that like we just never know what's around the corner.
I was going to say.
To some extent, it keeps us on our toes. Like we all thought that
lot
we
more
were
gray
screwed
hair.
when the pandemic came, and then you probably had your best year.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right. So like,
For sure.
who knows? It's fun.
A quote I heard, and I think I shared with Anthony, when rates go up, they take the elevator. When they come down, they take the stairs. And so I do think it's just going to take a while for rates to normalize. And like, I just think that 6.5%, it's going to be tough to sustain long-term growth in housing prices. I agree we're in a really good market where in reality, the market will be fine. But I think this slight correction is going to materialize. It's just my personal or professional opinion. And I hope I'm wrong. So I get a lot of property. I hope it continues to go up.
What
Cool.
gets sellers off the sidelines? So I've been reading a lot about all these sellers that are in at under 3 that they're never gonna want to leave.
Yeah.
Rate jail.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I think, do you want to role play? I just
Anthony
think
does.
I mean, look, I just did it, right? I refied my own mortgage on my prior house in August of 2020 at 2.625, and I bought my new house, and I had no option other than to go with 4.625.
And why did you
Well, it
need a
wasn't a
new
7.
house?
Why did I need a new house?
Yeah.
Because I wanted one.
Well, and didn't
Baby?
you have a life change?
Yeah.
I had a baby.
You had a baby.
I physically did not have a baby.
well,
You helped in the
okay.
activity.
Let's calm down. I think
Played a very small part.
to get yes, that's the truth. I think to get sellers off the fence, it's the salesperson's job, the real estate agent's job, in order to find true motivation. Because the reality is, people are still going to have. I think they're calling it the 5 Ds. It's like divorce, diamonds, diplomas, diapers, and death. I don't know. That was a pretty good one. If that's right.
I like that.
Like, and
think
so
that's
all
right.
those things will continue to happen that will make people need to sell. And it's our job to make sure the client understands. I'll give you a real life example. I went on a listing appointment a couple weeks ago, and we got the listing, but we're going to delay putting it on the market for probably 9 months, if not a year. Wow. Now, these people specifically,
I'd love to see that listing agreement.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
The
reality
lawyer
is-
in the room wants to.
The reality is
I
they're
want to make sure he's covered.
they're buying out of state, and they want some time to be here next summer. That was their real motivation. We don't want to leave the kids for next summer. So, but at the same time, I just obliged. I was like, yeah, that's fine. Let's do that. We have a couple different programs, or we can shoot the external photos now. We'll get it ready, hold it, whatever. The reality is, I should have asked a better question. Like, hey, Brendan, how would it make you feel if the market went down 15% between now and next summer?
I would not like that.
Yeah.
Seth.
So, like, I truly think
Equity.
Yeah, like
Equity's the play.
yeah, like people that are trying to sell right now and trying to capitalize on it. The market's sliding down, and we don't know if it's going to go down further, if it's going to change, and none of this shit is inside our control right now. What I know is the value of the house today, right? Because there's plenty of homes that I said, let's wait, let's pull it off the market, let's go back on the market. The reality is, I don't freaking know. And I was wrong a couple different times, and I think I'm a pretty knowledgeable agent and try and stay up to the date with the market. But the reality is what we know today, what we can price it at today, and it's the agent's job to overcome that objection. And to a degree, like, self-fear is not the right word, but the reality is, if that home goes down in value 15%, we screwed up, right? So I think it's just our job. And if the client says, I don't care, I think it'll go back up, and that's their call, right? But I think finding true motivation is how you get people off the fence in general.
Also, I feel like they were spoiled, and they need to get used. It's going to take time because they need to get used to the new norm. I hate that term, but they need to get used to higher interest rates. And as time goes on, a lot of them were going to forget that rates were in the 2s, 3s.
Sure.
So
yeah, I mean, the market, a healthy market is 4 or 5 months, 6 months on market. It's not the
2 weeks.
yeah, it's
Right.
not selling the first weekend.
everybody was spoiled.
Yeah. And I think, we've had to adjust how we communicate with our sellers as we go to market, right? Because it's not have one open house and high five on Tuesday with highest and best. It's just not the same anymore.
So what are you each doing in the next 90 days to sort of keep your pipeline full and your, next quarter looking healthy?
I'm working harder. Double
Same.
efforts.
Same.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Doing way more than I was.
Yep. Doubling down on everything. Effort. Educating as many buyers, agents, as many people as I can to just stop watching the news. It's not all bad.
Yeah. A strong market creates weak skills, and a weak market creates strong skills.
I think you texted me that in one of my downward spirals.
It's the truth. Like, I'm in here every day between, spend some time with the family in the morning. I get here between 8:30, and we're prospecting for new business.
Don't spend too much time at home. You're here at 8.
We're prospecting for new business, and then it's, we're here all day doing the work, right? Like, I work harder is, I think, exactly.
I heard
correct.
a great quote in a podcast on the way here.
Oh, I love podcasts.
The magic you're looking for is found in the work that you haven't done.
That's a good one.
Deep.
And we have time now to do different kinds of work,
Yeah.
which is what I'm taking advantage of.
Like recording podcasts.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, thank God you all have the time in your schedule for this.
Great point.
All right, cool. I think we'll call it call it a recording. So thank
Yeah.
you guys for coming in. Anthony, how does a consumer get a hold of you?
You can call or text me, 978-210-0728, or an email, anthony.lapolla@nrlmortgage.com.
The world's longest email address.
Can you
Or just
spell
my
LaPolla?
website, anthony@nrl.com.
Oh, that's good.
That's
Good.
easier.
And are you on social media, Anthony?
Yeah, I couldn't remember any of the, what do they call those, handles?
Yes.
Yeah, just find me on Facebook or something. I don't know.
Facebook. Okay. And Lacey?
MySpace, actually. I just
MySpace.
revamped it.
I think you were in my top 8 back in the day.
Ooh, look at me.
Oh gosh, for me, just Google me. You can Google me and just
such
go
a
to
good answer.
Yeah, Google me and go to loansbylacey.com and all my contact information's there.
That was way better.
That was way better than mine. Can we redo
I,
mine? and
I
just
don't want to
edit it
think.
out?
I don't want to think about my email address.
Yeah, right.
I'll screw it up.
Yeah, true. Awesome. All right. Well, we appreciate it, guys, and we
Yeah,
will
thank you.
talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.